Thank you for joining me on the Recruiters Recruitment podcast. I'm your host, Lysha Holmes, and this week's episode is a valuable one for those who are finding themselves working through their first ever recession in recruitment. So whether you have got 6 months or 5 years recruitment experience, we haven't officially been in a recession. COVID blip wasn't really considered a recession when you actually look at the REC stat. So the last time that the United Kingdom was working in a recession was in 2008 and 2009. And I consider that year and that period to have been one of my greatest learning curves as a billing recruiter. And I thought this episode would be really insightful and useful as a snapshot into what I did during that period, which was a far more severe recession and went on for far longer. And as I record this at the end of March 2024, the predictions are that we will be coming out of the recession towards the end of Q2. So I think if you do all these next things correctly now and create the right behaviours now, I think you'll be in a position not just to survive in future recessions and future challenging markets, but more importantly, thrive. The first thing I want to talk about is your mindset, because I think that's the critical component of people that will actually do well in a difficult downturn market. Understanding the longer term picture and not just taking a moment in time. So I think it's important to keep yourself really positive and use your insights into your market. So get to understand the industry movers and shakers, speak to those people, those individuals, and really build a true picture of what the market will continue to do beyond the here and now today. So the way I would do that is speak to, even if it's just a handful of your clients, and the reason that you're going to call them or drop them an email to have a phone call with them, that's the ideal, is to ask their opinion on the market, what their predictions are, what they're doing to ensure their businesses are robust, how they're actually looking to trade through the economic turmoil, and what their predictions are. And then you can then start to utilize those insights when you go on to speak to other clients. You don't need to impart commercially sensitive information or reveal client names, but you can start to collate some actual meaningful data. It's all well and good using data analytic tools, but actually having conversations with your clients gives you the verbal insights of what's actually happening, because data has nuances to it. So it's understanding, where do they see the opportunity? What do they think the biggest challenges will be from a recruitment perspective, whether it's hiring, whether it's, actually interviewing, whether it's actually retaining talent in your specific market, wherever you're listening to this. So that's the first thing I would say. I think the second thing I would do is really think about the empathy for people in your market right now. So what I mean by that is, if you are happy in your job right now, is there anything that anyone could say to you to convince you to leave it? Now, really think about that, because for me, that's where integrity, as an overused value and term that we often band around in recruitment circles, gets misused and misrepresented. And for me, what integrity really means is doing the right thing when no one knows, is doing the right thing every single time. And very often that can actually mean at your peril, and it can actually be to your detriment financially, because it could mean that a candidate that you've maybe headhunted or that has approached you about a role, it isn't the right role for them and it isn't the right market conditions for them to move. But this is where you will earn your reputation as a recruiter, by guiding them, counselling them, ensuring that they trust you, and building a reputation for having the most unbelievable ethics in your market. They say that these attributes pay dividends in the future, and they literally quite literally did for me. In 2008, 2009, it was an unpredicted recession. Nobody knew it was coming when the financial markets crashed, and it went on for a really long time. It went on for about a year. And during that time, I was approached by really significant billers. Even then, I was doing rec to rec, and I encouraged them to stay put. I said, it's too volatile for you to move markets right now. It's too risky. You're in a good company, you're doing okay, you're washing your face, which is a term often used when it means you're covering your costs. But that is where I earned my reputation. And when we came out of the recession, those people typically either became new clients, as they then went on to expand their teams because they remembered my integrity, or when the time was right for them to move jobs, they only spoke to me. So I would really think about that as time to define that. I think in difficult market conditions, that's where you define who you are as a person. And then the third and final thing that I want to talk about is often overlooked, often gets misrepresented by, the sort of old school, phone bashing, boiler room kind of counsel. And that's not what I'm here to suggest. But I do think that discipline around basics is critical to you surviving and then thriving in a challenging market. And what I mean by that is doing elements of the role that maybe you don't enjoy so much, but actually doing them anyway, because you know that they will get you the results that you need. I think it's making sure that you are consistent with doing those things every single day that you know you need to do, whether that's doing calls, whether that's sending out emails, whether that's, ringing around your existing clients, because that's your role to do that. It's doing it consistently. It's doing it with meaning and purpose. And it's doing so without cutting any corners. And I think, again, that's something that often gets misrepresented. Too often, the advent of automation and AI is being seen as a shortcut. And, absolutely, there are so many menial tasks that we can now automate, but that does not mean we cut corners. That doesn't mean that when we're interviewing somebody, we shouldn't be asking all the questions to ensure that we've covered all the bases. We've asked about counteroffer. We've ensured that we've asked about other opportunities they're looking at. We understand what could stop them moving from this job, what could go wrong. We need to ask no a lot more. So it's the discipline to do those things every single time. When we're taking on a new client, making sure we're covering off every single component of the job, the company, the team, the culture, the opportunity, the growth, as well as making sure that we're getting signed terms of business. It's every single conversation that you have, you cover every single base every single time. It's not repetitious, it's the job. And I think consistency creates high performance, and that's the reality. And that's what I want this podcast to be about you aspiring, whether you are listening to this as a new recruiter, as a new leader with a team of newbies, or even somebody like myself who's been doing this a long time. I have had to do this myself this start of 2024, where I've gone right back to the old basics. I've made sure that every single call, every single process, every single person that I speak to, I'm being more than thorough and being very consistent and disciplined in every single process. And actually, it's so much more enjoyable when you do it that way. I hope you found this insightful. Make sure you're subscribing to the podcast channel, because there will be some more solo episodes coming. And as always, I'm super grateful to every single person that listens. And thank you in advance if you choose to share this episode, if you find it helpful and think others might find it helpful too. Thank you once again for choosing to listen to the Recruiters Recruitment Podcast.